What are rudiments? So you may have heard that rudiments are just combinations of singles and doubles. So that doesn't really tell you anything, does it? I am here to tell you that not only should you learn your rudiments, but learning your rudiments will make you a better drummer, make you have a more discerning ear, allow you to communicate better with other drummers, maybe even other musicians, and allow you the framework to be able to express yourself more clearly. I hate memes. I hate them with all of my heart. That is to say that a specific type of meme that I see a lot that really gets to me is the types of memes that you see in either the coaching space or the self-help space. And the reason that I hate them is because what they try to do is they try to encapsulate a piece of wisdom in either a 23-second video or a single or two lines of a text that makes it seem like this is a profound statement when, unfortunately, sometimes things just aren't that cut and dry. Depth is not something that always accompanies simplicity. Sometimes we miss the forest for the trees, and sometimes we miss the trees for the forest. Sometimes by overgeneralizing, we actually miss extremely important things that looking at something at its whole or generalizing something at its whole doesn't allow us to see. Everyone's favorite analogy for music, language. What I hear is something that sounds like language is just a combination of vowels and consonants. And as long as you know your vowels and consonants, you can say anything that you want. That sounds ridiculous, given that hopefully all of us went to school at some point. But even before we went to school, we knew how to speak. We learned how to speak through absorbing all of the information around us by interacting with either parents or siblings or whoever was around to sort of give us the stimulation necessary for us to develop that part of our brain. And so we learn through context. We learn the way that syllables function. We learn all of this complicated information without a clear understanding of the inner workings of the way that language works, or specifically the way that our teeth, lips, and tongue work together in order to make intelligible sounds. And we do not understand what that looks like on paper, nor do we understand the superbly complicated rule set that language has. I before E, except after C. There is the phenomenon of putting two syllables or letters together, because letters are really just stand-ins or representations of these mouth noises that we make. You can survive being illiterate, but it's hard. No one likes the feeling of you're standing in a room, somebody says a word, you don't know what that word is, and you sort of nod along until you find some context. And then it's all gold because you sort of got through context clues what the word meant. I think that understanding those words, I think that understanding the nuances and the differences between different synonyms allows us assimilating as much as we can, understanding as many words and their usages. It just gives us much more creative expression, much wider range of expression. And that's sort of what this is about. Even if you were to say a flam, for instance, a flam is just two smushed together. We still need a way to talk about it that is distinct from single strokes, right? We kind of forget what words are used for. They're labels to help us organize information. And more to the point, in music, those words, those labels can allow us to identify what we hear other people play. If you are rudimentally literate, you can probably remember the first time someone played a paradiddle and you knew what it was. It's a magical feeling. A magical feeling when you're young in your craft. You may not be a young person, but you're young in your craft and you've learned something. You've spent time getting it in your ear and you recognize when someone else does it. You're like, oh, I know what that is. Part of the magic of Rudiments is it gives us a leg to stand on. It gives us an entry point into what drumming is about and what can be done. It allows us ways to organize this information in our brains that isn't just ones and zeros, that doesn't have that binary nature. If you've ever played guitar, you notice that when you look at a fretboard, apart from a lot of fretboards have markers that let you know what frets where you are. Classical instruments don't have that. And so once you start to understand scale shapes, then the thing lights up. Then it has meaning. Major chords, minor chords, augmented, diminished. As soon as you start to internalize those shapes have meanings and a sound that is associated with them. It goes into this place called implicit memory. So instead of spelling out flat 3, flat 6, flat 7, whatever you're saying, flat 2, once you know the label, if you're calling something out, right? If you know the way that a scale is shaped, then when you say that mode, other people know, right? It is a helpful shorthand for you to organize information into a larger chunk. That's the cool thing about the way that we organize information. We do it through pattern recognition. And the more interconnected those things are, the easier those things are to remember. When you learn a paradiddle and you understand how a paradiddle functions, and then when you learn a double paradiddle and that you understand that phonetically the para is talking about single strokes, and a double para is 2 single strokes, and there is a phonetic connection to the way that it's called. Because some people, I know rudiments sound weird, Radiman cues, drags, flam, blah blah blah, but it is a way of describing the sound that the rudiment makes. And so once you understand that, then you tap into the internal logic of the rudiment, right? And so the double paradiddle, triple paradiddle, paradiddle diddle start to describe themselves. The system of describing the way a paradiddle sounds. And that's what words do. Words point to concepts. They point to things. We don't view music or language in a particleized sense. We do what we can to organize this information into larger things. If you play fighting games, you know the down, diagonal, towards your opponent punch is the Hadoken, right? Or you do it the opposite way, and then you do kick. That is the Tatsumaki. I can't remember, but you can take that logic to other fighting games, even though it won't give you the same results. Street Fighter and Tekken are really, really different fighting games, but one does inform the other. I'm trying to get my wife into video games, and what's interesting is that she was resistant for a long time because it seemed like a different world. Having played video games since the age of 4, I am familiar with pausing the game. I'm familiar with looking for a menu where you can adjust the settings. I know that one button confirms, one cancels, one is an action. I know that if you hold a button or double tap a direction, you can either run or double jump. I remember when I had to learn how to use 2 joysticks because that used to not be a thing in video games, right? There is a language to video games that once you understand it, it brings you into a whole new world that you can enjoy. Rudiments is very similar, but if you're like my wife, it may seem overwhelming because it seems like a lot at once. And it doesn't have to be. There are millions, at least thousands of video games that are really good entry points that simplify and don't have you run in one direction and look in the other, like a flammed paradiddle diddle, which if you know a normal paradiddle diddle alternates and has a flam on it, which is different than a normal paradiddle diddle, but it also sounds different, which is the reason it deserves to be distinct. It just gives you another option. something to say, something to alter, something to work with, so you're not lost. Learning another language seems overwhelming, and I tell myself I'm going to do it. But I find that I'm in the same boat with people that don't want to learn rudiment, because it does take work. It does take a commitment, and the commitment can be sort of passive. You can pick one rudiment a week, and you would have them done in less than a year. And because of what I was saying earlier about the logic, you could learn a paradiddle, and then you could learn a double paradiddle, triple paradiddle, and the paradiddle diddle. Because they're so similar, you could learn both of them the next week. The thing about rudiments, as they usher you in, you will spend time at the beginning learning double stroke rolls, 5-stroke rolls, 6-stroke rolls. When you get to 7, 9, it's more of the same at different lengths. You start to understand where they stop and how much time they take. But it doesn't take as long to learn an 11-stroke roll as it does to initially learn double strokes. Learning rudiments, or like learning most skills, is cumulative. Now, if you're overwhelmed by that, getting a good teacher with a strong rudimental foundation is the way to go. And I'm sure on the internet there are some courses that talk about a good order to learn your rudiments in, because I understand being out there by yourself in a different world that I learned how to play drums in, because there weren't nearly as many talking heads like me online telling you what to do or what not to do. So as I got information, I didn't get everything at once. Someone was kind enough to show me paradiddles, and then when flams came along, that was a whole other world. But I didn't know that they existed all at the same time. And I think that's sort of the issue too, because we get so overwhelmed because of just so much information. Don't get disheartened. Trust me, learning your rudiments is something that will give back, and it will just allow you to be smarter and just more equipped, because it'll give you options that you never considered. There aren't shortcuts, unfortunately. The only way out is through. And if you get lucky enough, sometimes you can meet some success without having done a prerequisite thing, right? But there are so many people that I know that are amazing drummers that have regrets. They wish they practiced double bass when they had a chance. They wish they learned their rudiments, or learned how to read, or learned how to play jazz, whatever. You can make sure right now that you grow into the type of drummer that does not have regrets. I'm not even saying that you have to learn all your rudiments. There's a 26 American standard, there's a 40 international, there are tons and tons of hybrid rudiments. There are patterns that I've released, that I've taught, that I haven't really seen. The reason that I can have those patterns out is because I understand how rudiments work, right? That's all I want for you. I want you to have the ability to make informed decisions. I have my guard up when someone tells me there's information that I do not need to know. I'm not here to shame you into practicing just to mark things off on a list to say that you've done it. I'm here, hopefully, to inspire curiosity, urge skepticism. I'm here to tell you that the drumming world is vast. Reductionistic takes often are wrong. Please don't take memes seriously, especially when they're trying to sell you something. Stay humble, read, and take your time. So if you want to know what someone is doing, you want to have the language in order to articulate what someone is doing. And language needs words, not just letters, not just syllables. We need to understand grammar. We need to understand their relationship to each other. So no, I don't think that rudiments are just singles and doubles. And I think that thinking about things like that misses the point. Obviously, the name of this episode is In Defense of Rudiments.